So let's talk about courage. I've been asked recently multiple times about it. What would I say about courage? Well, what would you have me say, Creator? Courage is it's interesting because what amount of courage people have is never what they think they have. There's people that think they're real brave, but they aren't. They live as total cowards and prove it constantly, but they don't see it that way. They turn a blind eye. They don't recognize their own cowardice in the things they do. And then there's people that doubt their own courage, who are actually quite brave, especially when given a reason to be, a real reason, some clarity. Um, there's people that go out of their way to seem courageous. They do high risk things, but those same people sometimes have things in their life that have always been a massive issue that should have been dealt with, but they don't have the particular type of courage for that particular thing. Now, myself, I'm actually very, very brave, tons and tons of courage, to the point where if something actually intimidates me, I'm more likely to do it. Um, I have to defeat that. I have to remove that intimidation or that blockage or that seeming limitation. Um, but I've learned some very, very, very harsh lessons along the way about the fact that courage in and of itself, even though it's considered a positive human trait, in and of itself, if you're acting just out of courage, it's not likely to work out all that well. It's probably going to get you devastated in life or even killed. Where I'm going with that is that courage is something that really only pays off when it's paired with, say, wisdom. Um, some would say pair it with strategy, but the problem with that is I'm not talking about how to win a war or take advantage or overcome somebody else. To me, that's not a positive outcome because there are ongoing consequences to taking advantage of others. So strategy is good and all, but I would say what courage really needs to be used right is wisdom. And wisdom is probably more rare than courage, especially on a planet like this. Let's come up with sort of a arbitrary example. Let's say you're someone who grows up in a situation where everyone above you in the order of things does a lot of things you don't agree with, right? Um, and inside you would like to challenge them or attempt to correct them or at least express your disagreement and possibly share some better ways of being and living. But when you try it even a little bit, they react horribly, they abuse you. Clearly, they're not open to it. And when you're young, growing up under other people's authority, let's say, this, depending on how much sovereignty you have in your life, in other words, when you're really young and you don't have your life in your own hands, or even if you're older and you don't, you're really limited as to what you can do about a situation like that. Would courage be to fight for the right cause even though it goes nowhere? Because I've seen people do this until they die from some disease or accident or conflict, and it achieved nothing except their destruction. Even if they were right about something, even if they had the more accurate view of whatever it was they were fighting about. So there's futility there. So courage in and of itself can be very, very futile, self-destructive, destructive of others. I mean, it can just be costly and achieve nothing. So let's take that same situation. Let's say you don't choose to just argue with people that aren't open to it. Or maybe you're not arguing, you're just expressing a better way, but they hate it and they attack you, yada, yada. Well, what would Yeshua say? Don't throw pearls before swine because they'll just bury the pearls in mud. So, in other words, you express something amazing of a higher level, They twist it into something ugly till it's unrecognizable. They destroy it. And then they turn and attack you anyway. Sometimes what courage really is to have the courage to shake the dust off your feet and leave that behind. Now, you're going to have the courage combined with faith if you're going to strike out on your own into a life unknown, a better way that you have a vision or a plan or an ideal for. That requires much bigger courage than squabbling with people about your personal views. How do I know? Because the entire world's full of people with big talk about their big dreams about how they're going to live someday. And I don't know if it's like less than 1% of 1% of 1% ever acts on any of that. And the other 99.99999, they all fight with each other about politics and religion and other social ideas and this and that. And those fights can get really ugly. And yet these same people, even if they end up in horrific domestic violence or something, they're willing to have those squabbles and fights about opinions, but they don't have the courage to go out and just live a better life instead of preaching at others about how they should be living a better life or something like that. Right now, the world is saturated with an addiction to outrage, and outrage sells, and people are drawn to it, unfortunately. And people are already caught up, without even social media making it that way. People have been caught up in arguing pointlessly about things that don't make anything better for the longest time. So it's funny, some people might see that as courage. The reason I try not to engage in such things is I see it as complete futility. And the last thing I need is stress and drama and lost time and effort and focus over things that are futile. So once someone's shown me, they don't have the ears to hear it or the eyes to see it. I'm not going to waste any time trying to influence or whatever. I don't push my ideals on anybody anyway. I've had other people's ideals pushed on me, and it's horrific and destructive. So, as to do unto others, even if my ideals are much better and healthier, still not going to push them on others. It's just a spiritual principle. But, courage comes in a lot of forms. How courageous is a woman to have natural childbirth? There's guys that think they're the biggest, toughest thing, but they would never have the courage to do that. Courage, what one person's courageous about is like kryptonite to another that they couldn't even begin to face. And then vice versa, that other person probably handles certain things easily that the first person couldn't handle. So when it comes to a specific situation and you're going, man, I just wish I had more courage because here's what I think I need to do. If you're really, really sure, if you're really, really sure that you know the right thing that you need to do for the sake of your own soul, then make yourself do it. See, sometimes people think if I was courageous, I wouldn't be afraid of this. But that's, of course, ridiculous because the whole point of courage is to be able to do something when you are afraid of it. If you're not afraid of it, it doesn't require any courage, does it? So don't let the fear convince you you're not courageous. If you know you need to do something, if you're decided on it, if you fully believe it's the thing you need to do it. You know, feel the fear, but don't believe the fear and let it stop you. But if you're not fully sure, think it through carefully and think, well, maybe I'm just more interested in making sure that I have courage in general, but I need to think carefully about what's the right courageous move to make in my life. You know, there's things that come upon you fast and instant reaction speed, and you either do or you don't. If if you come upon a scene and someone's let's say you see like a gang rape unfolding in some innocent young girl or whatever, you're going to do what you're going to do. And I don't care what anybody says, unless you've been in a situation like that. You don't know ahead of time what you're going to do until you do. Um, and courage can often take you out of this world. And sometimes you have to assess the situation and decide if that's where you stand, if it's worth it in my life to give my life for something that needs to be a great statement, you know. There's no greater love than someone who gives their life for a friend, for example. So that's courage mixed with love, right? And love, real love, can make you profoundly courageous. You know, when you know you love someone, um, you might be surprised how courageous you are when it comes to protecting that person, or even a pet or whatever it is, you know. So it's really funny to me because having known a lot of people and been in a lot of different types of situations and ventures in life, I've noticed that people don't understand or know their own courage level. Unless you've done things that force you to test it and force you to go through, you know, hoops of fire of great fear, rites of passages over and over and over, and you know who you are in that sense. Some of us have had the opportunity or fortune or experience of doing things that show us, yeah, I definitely am courageous, I mean, guys, I've walked into situations that were pretty much hopeless, that I knew I was going to get hurt, but I just had to do what I had to do, you know. And because I knew that I would rather live with that version of me than the other one who didn't do it, because I know what that would be like to live with myself if I didn't do certain things, and that's much scarier. So, hmm. So I guess the points of this video are: one, you may not know your own courage level. Most people don't. Don't sweat it so much. Two, if you're doubting it or questioning it or feeling like you need more courage, you must be in a situation right now, an ongoing situation that you feel like you need the resolve to do something. As long, like I say, as long as you're clear on what that choice is that you know is the right thing for you, you need to do it. But that's only if you're sure. If you're if you're operating off of some idea you picked up from someone else, you know, that you heard somewhere, you think it sounds good, oh, I ought to do this. Well, are you sure? You know, does that really apply to your situation? Or if you're looking to be courageous, is there something smarter or wiser that you could do with that courage, you know, to transcend the situation entirely? How much courage does it take to go to a land you've never been to before with a one-way ticket with your family to create complete self-sufficiency and complete off-grid self-reliance? How much courage does that take? So it's interesting because courage is kind of like a fire that can be built up different ways or put out if you pour water on it. Don't pour water on your own fire, you know. Don't pour your own doubts or self-negative talk. But if you have something great to do or you believe in and it requires big courage, I find that it doesn't even require what I would call courage if you're truly inspired by it. Like if you're truly inspired and excited about something, sure, parts of that big venture may be a little scary or nerve-wracking or whatever, but you don't really dwell on the fear courage aspect. You're so inspired by the point of it, by the point of what you're doing, that you know you're going to do what it takes to sort it out and figure it out as you go and not give up because this is authentic to you. And that way, no matter how many setbacks or injustices or weird things you couldn't predict get in the way, you just keep going and recovering and getting back up and doing what you got to do. Don't go off half-cocked, as they say. Don't get into a situation that requires courage, but you're not truly motivated in your spirit to deal with that situation anyway. You're just kind of putting yourself in there to see what'll happen. You'll get steamrolled is what'll happen. Like you have to have, if you're going to do an act that requires courage, you need to make sure you already have the conviction. It's true to you. You're doing this, you know. If you have that conviction, you can carry through the courageous act. But if you're lying to yourself and you have no idea what it entails, and you know, so many weird nuances because this can go so many ways because there's people that talk themselves into things they're not ready for. They have some kind of, and this is probably more common in the younger generations that have mostly lived their life in a building through a cell phone and a TV, disconnected from reality. If you don't have real life experience, you just get this idea and you go out in the real world thinking you're going to be all big and brave, but you don't know what pain really feels like. and you don't know what you're up against, like you may fall hard. And that's fine because courage doesn't guarantee success in anything. But it'll backfire if you find out you weren't in it for the right reasons anyway. So if you're going to do something courageous, make sure it aligns with what you really believe. Okay? You know, why didn't Yeshua just keep himself from being crucified? Well, for a lot of reasons. For one, how you going to rise? How you going to raise from the dead to show people how legit you are if you don't do something like that? But there's something profoundly courageous about letting people tell lies about you and torture and murder you like you're the bad guy and do the ultimate evil to you, and you forgive them while you can still get words out, as an example, and then you raise yourself from the dead. I mean, that's just off the charts, superb and amazing and one of a kind. But what is my point with that? My point is, courage. Do not connect courage in your mind with victory. There's people who end up being the winner of a certain sport or a certain war or a certain whatever it is people are competing about, who seem very brave because they won, but they weren't the bravest person involved. These people usually have everything stacked in their favor, and that's the only reason they're doing it to begin with. The courageous one are the names you don't even remember because they had to do everything the hard way with no hype, no funding, and no support against impossible odds. So then when they lost or whatever, people just, whatever, and forgot them. So don't let the Hollywood movies convince your mind that by being greatly courageous, you know, magical, wonderful things are going to happen. In the end, it'll be like everyone lived happily ever after because you were courageous. I can tell you guys through lots and lots of different types of courageous experiences in life, in all different areas. A lot of times it doesn't get you what you're looking for, and a lot of times it doesn't get you good results, and a lot of times it doesn't get you anything positive. I'll be honest with you. And a lot of times you got to look back and go, maybe I shouldn't even bother being courageous with certain things. Maybe I should let other people mess around with that. Where should I apply my courage? So to me, I guess the tone of this video is that courage is a potentially positive trait. It's a lot better than cowardice, but it can be misused just as well as it can be used. And courage needs not even a wingman. Courage needs a leader. Courage needs a leader. Someone who can see what's going on and understand where to apply that courage. Because the courage itself is just like a fire saying, okay, I'm built up, give me something to burn. And, fire can get out of control and destroy everything you have and hurt people, kill people, animals, life, earth. Or, it can forge things, it can build things, it can protect things, it can build a new future, it can blaze a new path. So there's two issues here. How much courage do you have, and how and where do you use it, right? And if you're wondering, some people might wonder, some people have fallen under the spell to think everything is some kind of cookie cutter, predetermined genetic blueprint that you can't escape, and you have some preset amount of courage that can't be changed. Of course, that's not true. If your life forces you through a lot of hideously difficult situations, I mean, there's a couple ways to go with that. You could be the traumatized, shaking, quivering, broken nervous system version of it, or you be the one that keeps surviving the beatings, getting stronger, and then things that other people think are scary seem like nothing to you because of what you've been through. So obviously, your courage threshold has been pushed much higher. So if you can find a productive way to build courage, a productive way, that's the key word here, not arguing pointlessly with people that'll just get more savage and destructive, engendering bad feelings and harm all around, not, getting in meaningless fights and doing violence to make the world a better place or something. But if you can find a constructive way to build upon your courage, to test it, to build it and develop it, that's a good thing. That's a blessing if used well. Just make sure that whatever you do to test your own courage isn't something that's just going to be fatal, okay, if it goes wrong. Because, like I say, being courageous has nothing to do with winning anything. Okay? It has nothing to do with outcomes of success. And a lot of times the braver person is the one that was fighting the bigger odds anyway and had no chance to begin with. So in your heart, in your mind and heart, when you hold the idea of courage in there, what can you combine with it that makes it feel very warm and true and right and good and life affirming? What can you aim your courage at constructively? You know, what is the philosophy? What is the guiding principle of how it's going to be used? If you can combine your courage with something you really believe in, then even if the odds are stacked against you and say you don't even achieve it because it's astronomically difficult to achieve, you'll still feel right about it. You know, there's been plenty of instances of human beings knowing full well that they weren't going to be able to achieve what they were setting out to, but they did it anyway. They just had to. They had to do the right thing, and it took great courage. So there are definitely practical ways to build upon your courage. Just make sure they're constructive because this world hands out countless ways to use courage foolishly. And it also hands out even more counterfeits that seem like courage, but they're not. For example, people arguing in society about those are the bad guys and I'm better and whose fault it is and whatever, that's all pure cowardice and it's disgusting. It's the negative forces that pull the strings manipulating foolish human beings against each other. And, everybody talks real big and bad about somebody else from a place of no accountability but behind a cell phone somewhere. And then I see these same people run from danger in real life. They won't lift a finger to help somebody in a hazardous situation because they actually have no courage. So don't confuse those making the loudest noise and all the threats with courage. It's usually the opposite. Why is it those that lead the world don't fight any of their own battles? They talk innocent, naive, well, not so innocent, I guess, but foolish, naive young men mostly into going and murdering each other so that they can profit from it. There's no courage in it. So another thing about being young, especially if you're male, but not always, this applies to anybody. And when I'm talking young, I'm not talking so much about age, just more about experience level with this topic. But don't let your desire to be courageous be taken advantage of by those who already have set up agendas to use your attempt to be courageous for, like war, for example. You know, it would be courageous humanity is if every one of you, everyone, everywhere said no. You old belligerent dark husks want to have a war, go fight each other on a battlefield. But why would they do that? They're all in it together and they need you to kill each other. You know, it takes more courage than getting put in a uniform, handed a gun, and saying, shoot at those guys. Refusing to. That's what changes the world. Much love, everybody. Over now for the moment.